Hello, and welcome to our Perspectives of Leadership podcast. My name is Annika Kuhar, and I am a third-year biology student with minors in Women's and Gender Studies and Medical Humanities.
I'm Echo Smith, a third-year Women and Gender Studies major.
I'm Ryan Galvez, a third-year Women and Gender Studies major with a focus on human services.
And I'm Brandy Fredrickson, a second-year Business Administration major.
Today, we will be discussing Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern of New Zealand's response and actions toward mitigating COVID-19 in terms of leadership. Jacinda has held her leadership role as Prime Minister of New Zealand since 2017, and she just got re-elected.
Ardern earned her bachelor's degree in communication and was involved in the Labour Party early on in her education. Ardern then worked for 2 years under British Prime Minister Tony Blair, where she got an understanding of what it meant to be a Prime Minister. Between 2005 and 2017, Ardern dabbled in various political roles and assignments until she took up the nomination of Prime Minister of New Zealand in 2017, where she won her seat at the table.
A few aspects of Ardern's leadership that we'll be talking about will include leadership styles she possesses, policies she's implemented, comparisons and contrasts of her male counterparts, similarities among women leaders dealing with COVID-19, and comparisons between Nebraska and New Zealand in terms of leadership and COVID-19. We chose Jacinda Ardern because of her personality, her incredible leadership style, and her mitigation of the virus.
To start off, I will talk a little bit about Jacinda Ardern's leadership styles. Jacinda Ardern possesses the transformational leadership style and the adaptive leadership style. The transformational leadership approach gives more attention to ethics and emotions. This requires influence through the concept of charisma to push followers to achieve more than what is expected. Jacinda Ardern does a great job of exemplifying transformational leadership by using the 4 factors involved with it. She uses her power of influence to act as a strong role model using the idealized influence factor. She inspires followers to stay committed to a shared vision using the inspirational motivation factor. She encourages the development of innovative strategies using the intellectual stimulation factor, and she provides a supportive environment to truly listen to her people using the individualized consideration factor. Jacinda Ardern also exhibited adaptive leadership by drawing attention to how her people adjusted to the new normal of a pandemic. She accomplished this by keeping an open line of communication with her people even during lockdown. She would take to social media to make sure questions were being answered and voices were being heard. This perfectly exemplifies adaptive leadership because this shows her effort to help her people adapt to their new challenges. Jacinda Ardern's success with keeping her country under control during the pandemic is credited to her ability to possess these leadership skills and the factors involved with them. It is imperative to mention how she was very strict with her rigorous and drastic lockdown requirements from the very beginning, all while cracking mom jokes on various Facebook Live broadcasts. When you mix those 2 extremes with each other, it shows a leader who does what is necessary, all while caring about the well-being of their people. The New York Times describes the pandemic as crises of communication, when leaders must persuade entire populations to suspend their lives because of an invisible threat. The way Jacinda Ardern led New Zealand through their lockdowns exhibits her skills of charisma, rhetoric, and influence.
Next, let's talk a little bit about what policies and actions Ardern has taken to halt the spread of COVID-19. I personally think she has excelled in this area. According to Radio New Zealand, the first case of coronavirus in New Zealand was found on February 28th. By March 19th, New Zealand closed its borders for the first time in nation's history. 2 days later, Ardern and the New Zealand government unveiled a 4-level alert system for COVID-19, which detailed what restrictions and precautions citizens must take to prevent the spread. By March 25th, New Zealand entered Alert Level 4, requiring all citizens to stay in a 4-week-long shutdown. From the shutdown until now, New Zealand's numbers of cases have continued to decrease, and the spread of the virus has slowed. Besides policies she had helped implement, Ardern has also stayed true to her thoughts and beliefs. On April 7th, New Zealand's Health Minister David Clark was seen with his family at the beach, despite the lockdown orders. Ardern immediately demoted him and replaced him with a new face. Without Ardern's quick thinking, decisive actions, and constant support to others, New Zealand would look completely different in terms of COVID-19.
Jacinda Ardern has handled the COVID-19 response in New Zealand with compassion and clear communication with the public. Jacinda managed to bring the public together in fighting the spread of COVID-19 and created a team-like atmosphere. Similar to Jacinda's response to COVID-19 is Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison's response. Currently, Australia has 1,311 active cases. Arguably, one of his biggest accomplishments has been his ability to put his own ideology aside and bring together people of opposing political views for the greater good. As stated in Grid Index tracking the global leadership response in the COVID-19 crisis on the CMA Australian site, he created a national cabinet as a unique decision-making authority, bringing together state premiers of different political persuasions to work together on a common goal to overcome the crisis. Scott Morrison shows adaptive leadership in the COVID-19 crisis. He has made changes essential to keeping Australia safe and has united people of different viewpoints together to work toward solutions. He identified what needed to be done to stop the spread of COVID-19 and encouraged his followers to work with him and with one another to do so. In the United States, President Donald Trump has shown pseudo-transformational leadership. As defined in Leadership by Nordhaus, a pseudo-transformational leader has strong inspirational talent and appeal, but is manipulative and dominates and directs followers toward his or her own values. It is leadership that is threatening to the welfare of followers because it ignores the common good. President Trump has pushed hard for reopening, disregarding the rising cases, continually played the seriousness of the virus down, and has left the public confused and divided. The United States response to COVID-19 is labeled as arguably the worst response on CMA Webline. As stated in Why Trump Shouldn't Compare America's COVID-19 Outbreak to New Zealand in one chart, featured in Vox, what makes the U.S. truly different, expert says, is Trump's leadership or lack thereof. Time and time again throughout the pandemic, Trump has gone against the advice of even his own public health experts. He pushed the country to reopen too quickly. He suggested that U.S. actually does too much testing. He downplayed the now proven benefits of masks, claiming that some people wore masks to spite him. Jacinda Ardern and Scott Morrison have both handled the coronavirus successfully and promoted unity while doing so. President Donald Trump has taken a much different approach, and the United States' staggering amount of new cases and deaths speaks for themselves.
Now let's talk a little bit about other female leaders in the world and how they compare to Ardern's leadership. The information I'll be focusing on is from an article written by Aviva Wittenberg-Cox for Forbes.com. The female leaders in this article are from Germany, Taiwan, Iceland, Finland, Norway, and Denmark, as well as Jacinda Ardern of New Zealand. This article looks at 4 areas these leaders demonstrated well, and those areas are truth, decisiveness, tech, and love. In the area of truth, Angela Merkel expressed the seriousness to Germany and immediately began testing and jumping over phases of denial, anger, and disingenuousness. For decisiveness, Tsai Ing-wen of Taiwan introduced 124 measures to block the spread without having to resort to lockdowns at the very first sign of the illness. Jacinda Ardern was quick to lock down and very clear on the maximum level of alert she was putting the country under and why. For tech, Prime Minister of Iceland, Katrín Jakobsdóttir, offered free testing to all citizens and instituted a thorough tracking system. And Finland's Prime Minister, Sanna Marin, used social media influencers as key agents in battling coronavirus by spreading fact-based information on managing the pandemic. In the area of love, both Norway and Denmark held press conferences early on, with Norway's Prime Minister Erna Solberg having the innovative idea of using her conference to talk directly to her country's children, where she responded to their questions and took time to explain why it was okay to feel scared. Overall, these female leaders all shared empathy and displayed care towards their citizens. They were quick to respond and lock down their countries, and while they were more risk-averse in the domain of human life, they were more risk-taking when it came to the economy compared to their male counterparts.
Now let's look a little closer at how Nebraska's leadership compares to New Zealand's. According to the Omaha World Herald, around the second week of March, UNL and UNO canceled all classes in person and required students who were living in the dorms and were able to be relocated to move off campus. Around March 18th, public gatherings of more than 10 people were prohibited. This did not stop a lot of Nebraskans from going against this ruling, however.
Near the beginning of May, government officials in Omaha already opened up churches, restaurants, and all public spaces. In mid-June, Governor Pete Ricketts announced he will not grant federal COVID-19 money to businesses that required masks. And 4 days later, bars and restaurants were allowed to have up to 100% capacity. It was not until August 11th that Omaha voted for a mask mandate, which citizens rarely even abided to.
Now we flash forward to today, and masks are more of a suggestion. People are going out and about to restaurants and bars freely, and the numbers of coronavirus cases in Nebraska reaches the number that mirrors our numbers back when the virus first appeared. We are nowhere near where Ardern and her administration are in terms of mitigating the virus, and we believe this is because of the leadership we have in Nebraska.
Omaha, as well as Nebraska overall, could benefit greatly from utilizing Jacinda Ardern's leadership styles and implementing the policies and actions that she has throughout this pandemic. By inspiring the people to work together using transformational leadership and better adjusting procedures when the cases rise by demonstrating adaptive leadership, Omaha's leaders could help the city lower the cases and keep more people healthy. Also, if Omaha was stricter on its precautions and procedures, as Ardern has been, it could keep from increasing the number of cases overall. With less thought to the economic side and more focus on the lives of people, Omaha would be able to mimic the tremendous success that Jacinda Ardern has demonstrated as a leader.